On this episode of Content Sessions, we talked to Avree and Taylor about Eureka Hub. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having us.
I'm so glad we finally got this done.
I know. Thanks for meeting so late for accommodating the travel schedule.
I actually prefer them later because then I know my phone's not going to ring and there's not going to be any interruptions. You can take a load off, take time.
I generally feel more productive at night anyway.
Are you?
So yeah, I'm a little bit of a night owl. So for me, this is great.
You're a night person as well?
No, I don't think so. I prefer to get up at 5 a.m. if I have to.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's
get up, get it done.
I do my best work from midnight to 3.
Oh okay.
Just got it on.
Powering through.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eureka. Tangents, I love it. So tell me a little bit about what the business is, what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So Eureka Hub is our co-working space that we have. And I'll try to keep this succinct, but I tangent a lot.
That's all right.
But Eureka Hub is basically the co-working side of things of the Eureka Building Project, or the Eureka Project as we call it. In our Orange County headquarters, the Eureka Hub is one part of the Eureka Building itself. The Eureka Building is a 3-acre campus-style building designed to house and accelerate startups, creatives, and really just to give people a centralized location to cultivate their businesses and sort of step out on their own, ventures and journeys, and we give them the space to do that. And then within that, we have the Eureka Hub. So in Irvine, it's a 7,000 square foot space. In Toronto, it's
12,000 square feet.
It's 12,000. And the goal was really always to create a space specifically for entrepreneurs. So I think that's something that always has set us apart, is that we're literally thinking of the person who just quit their job at the big company or whatever that corporate position is, and to give them a really well-worked utilitarian space that they can afford, that's a price that makes sense, that's all-inclusive, that they can understand, and that is sustainable as they grow.
Got it. And I obviously knew it from the working space because I've been in Broadview and Eastern.
Yeah.
I got the tour just before I went away. So
perfect.
It's a cool looking space, and it looks like you guys were kind of continually adding.
Always adding, always making changes. We actually just opened up a rooftop patio in our Toronto location. And just finding new ways to always make it better for entrepreneurs and startups. Yeah.
Got it. And so how did the business originally start? Was it an incubator first, or was it a concept of it's going to be both? How did it come about?
Yeah. So our CEO, Peter Polydor, sort of had what we've branded as his own Eureka moment, to create this building, to create this space, and to create this brand, back in 2013. He looked high and low all over Orange County and quickly found the building. And it was a really big dream of his to create this space and to create this sort of movement, I guess, because where we planted ourselves in Irvine, there really wasn't anything there yet. It was things were happening, but there were really only 1 or 2 other spaces at the time. And a lot of people told him when he was thinking of doing this, there's no way that's going to work. Absolutely not.
Right.
No way. And we're really incredibly proud of how successful it's been. But yeah, we found the building in 2013, and so we call the first phase was basically just getting the first ground floor ready, and we did that and opened officially January 1st in 2014.
And that was the co-working space that opened first.
It was actually we had 2 offices that and our main atrium venue, which is our main space where we do a lot of our events in Orange County, and we mainly did a lot of the renovations for the first 2 what we call our anchor tenants that moved in. It was a really big company that had patented licensed, I think software technology that from Mophie. They did the power charging cases,
right. Okay.
And then a big sports brand. And then after that, I'd say midsummer, we officially opened the Eureka Hub, which was well received, and people started moving in, and we found some great companies, and then I'd say within the first year we were fully leased and everything was full. So it's kind of cool to say, we went from 20% occupied to 97% in under a year.
Crazy.
In addition to that, we did 100 community-focused events as well. So it was a big year.
And that was that all 7,000? That all that was the 7,000 square feet within that period of time, or did it eventually kind of grow?
So the hub itself was 7,000, and then so that has always stayed at that square footage. But, you know, again, like Avree said, we're always retooling and always adding things. So we've changed things a little bit. Like we had one private office that was really long, that was sort of like a developers haven. And then we split it into 2 spaces and said, no, this works better as a smaller person office, and then an additional conference room, because our members were not fighting for time, but they were trying to figure out when they were booking their meetings and things like that. And then the full square footage of Eureka and Irvine is 40,000. I mean, there's a little extra change on the end, but it's about 40,000. And then the hub is 7,000 of it. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
And so when did the incubation side come in? Was it like, hey, we've started to build this community and people really responding, let's add to that?
Yeah. So Peter always kind of says that he was an entrepreneur turned investor. And so I think for him, he is somebody who's very specific in terms of like what he invests in, but he cares about startups at every size and every scale. And I've seen him take meetings with everybody. And so we sort of rolled in Ergo Excel for a brief period of time out of the Eureka Hub in Irvine. And then I believe we're doing a little bit of that in Toronto as well.
A little bit.
A little bit. And I think it comes down to a company that like fits the portfolio of things that he's used to investing in. But again, that he really feels like ultimately he can make the biggest impact to help them.
Cool. And so you were on from the very beginning?
Yeah. So it was a fun story to tell. So I lived in Los Angeles for almost 10 years. And then sort of like that last year second to last year that I lived there, I had been working for a company that was doing like corporate events, and there was a lot of cross-pollination between Canada and California, and a lot of their focus was on sort of like merging the gap of Canadian entrepreneurs wanting to come to California or vice versa. And I met Peter because he was on one of the boards, and I was sort of like the Pepper Potts of the organization, if you will.
Sure.
And I had organized this dinner for TIFF, and it was sort of like, who's this Taylor person? And then I would do monthly phone calls like, hey, we have our board meeting coming up. Are you coming? You know, and we quickly became like, we just had a lot in common, and I really feel like we have a lot of like same core values. And so when he finally found the Eureka space and was looking to hire someone, he actually went to my former CEO and said, like, can I hire her? Right. Like, sort of saw me not really being fully utilized and just undercapped really. Right. And sort of said, hey, I really think that you could be like the person to help me like grow this and take this over. And at the time I was living in LA, and obviously our building's in Orange County, so I commuted 65 miles each way every day for 10 months. But I put a futon in my office. Like, it was like startup life 101
right.
down to the T.
So much fun at that time.
It was so fun though. Like, I look back on those memories now with like so much pride and so much joy and so much honor, because I feel like that blood, sweat, and tears of that grit that you put into something, like, you get it back for sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can see it now where I'm like, that's how that paid off, and it's cool. It's like it's its own Eureka moment in some aspects.
Got it. And so how long was it that the California location was open, or is Irvine, Texas? No.
California.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So California opened 2013, 14?
January 1st, 2014. And then I'd say we were like officially upwardly mobile, and things are moving and shaking and happening by like October of 2014.
And so how did you end up here?
In Toronto?
Yeah.
So Peter is Canadian.
Got it.
And he's also Greek and Canadian, Greek first, Canadian second. And so a lot of his passions and things like that for technology and startups and stuff like that, he always spent a lot of time here and lives here and splits his time between Toronto and California. And so we sort of felt like it was the next best hub based on what he thought. And then in addition to that, he has an incredible amount of foresight in terms of planting something and putting a stake in the ground and then like letting people surround it. Like I said, when we opened Irvine, there really wasn't a ton of action happening in the area that we're at. And now it's insane. It's booming. And so I think the same thing's happening on this eastern side.
Yeah. Well, he actually really strategically placed the building. we're near Queen and Broadview, and one of the things happening behind us is Sidewalk Labs and the East Harbor development. So as much as that's going to take a while to get in place, when it does get in place, we'll already have the building, we'll already be up and running, we'll hopefully already have a name at that point too in Toronto, and we'll have just quite this like little hub for all these people coming into the space and utilizing this tech space to come and hang out with us instead.
And it was the place you took over was an auto garage there, or was it kind of what was the building before?
The building before used to be a BMW storage facility.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't there when the building was acquired, but from what I've heard, it was in quite rough shape. And it took a complete 360. The building's beautiful now. People, when I tell them it used to be a garage, they're like, no way. And my office is literally in a garage. And
you're in the big bank.
And you wouldn't even think about it. Like, you walk in and the first thing you think is, wow, this is a garage. You think, wow, this is beautiful. Hey, that garage door opens. This is cool. So it's a really cool space.
Got it. And so you guys have 5 floors, 10,000 square feet. Is that the gist? Plus your rooftop now?
Yeah, plus our rooftop. Something around there. Yeah, it's a nice big space. We have capacity for 90 people in total, and that would be probably about like 20 to 30 companies, all under 20 people. So it gets nice and smaller companies in and collaborating and bouncing ideas off each other.
And was that the under 20 companies, was that a function of space, or is that a function of that's the type of target that you guys the type of organization that you go after?
I think it was a little of both, maybe. I can't speak for it from the beginning, but when you find a building that works, I think it's just like go for it and then make it work after. But it's nice having a smaller building and less companies, because my tenants all really know each other. They're friends. A lot of them have already worked together. And if you go to a place where maybe there's 200 or 300 people in the building, you're with strangers every day. And like everyone loves each other at Eureka Hub. We're a cute little family.
Yeah. Do you guys feel in any way that you're competing with the WeWork, or you guys, I mean, obviously you are because it's the same space, but it feels like it's a very different feel. It's a very different, the objective of the business is different, and we can talk about that. But
no, it's a fantastic question. So one thing that we always try to say is that we, like, obviously the word coworking, you sort of tend, I think, now gravitate towards like WeWork or something like that. But I think we've sort of figured out who we are and what we're about. And then just because we use the word coworking doesn't mean we're all mutually exclusively competing. I think WeWork has such a scale that they're trying to achieve.
Right.
I think something about our model that is unique and different is that we're purchasing these buildings and then we're renovating them from the ground up and then leasing them from there. So our growth and our growth over time is going to be a little bit more conscious. Right. And I think also too, again, so many startups, it's like the go, expand, scale. And then you've scaled and it's like, oh my God, what are we doing? And so I think we're doing it at the pace that makes sense for us. Right. So I think in some ways that sort of sets us apart. And then the one thing that we've always stuck to is we do have like an application process where it basically says like, who are you? What do you do? What is your company? Like, what are you looking to get out of the community? What do you want to give back? So we are actively looking for people who want to join because they want to be an active participant, not just a taker. And then I think within that, we specifically really, don't get me wrong, we have some great relationship with, startup attorneys that focus on getting people the things that they need to build a great foundation and then help them go from there. But we don't have any lawyers, CPAs. It's anything that's specifically related to creative and tech.
Awesome. Got it. And so it's kind of like a Soho
kind of,
feel,
yeah.
Right?
We say, so in Toronto when we were launching it, a big part of the branding was like a members only co-working space. So a little bit more of that exclusivity. We're still super friendly. Like, like people come in and I'm like, hey, what's up? How are you? Tell me your life story. So we still do that. I think for us, we really try to emphasize one of our like core values is that people are our currency. And so, don't get me wrong, we're very much a for-profit business, but at the end of the day, like we want the people who are buying into us know that we're bought into them. And if that means that, they start with one desk and then they hire 3 people and then they go into a private space, and then at our space, we have some units that are, 4, 5, 6, 8,000 square feet. So they can expand up to a certain point before they'd have to leave us. And it's really cool to be able to see, like, I knew you when. And then that feeds back into the community too. Because they feel that loyalty, and then they want to give back to the next little guy who's come in.
So I would imagine that your retention rate is very high.
It is.
In California. I mean, this is very new here in Toronto, right? You're about a year old?
We are hitting a year as of tomorrow, actually.
Shit,
so,
congratulations.
Or no, sorry, Thursday.
Oh,
yeah.
Pretty good timing for this.
We're having a big summer social on Thursday that Avree has planned, so we're excited about it. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess because you're kind of building it in that way, what you've seen in California is probably...
Yeah. I'd say in the hub in Irvine specifically, I have like one of my dedicated, we call it like a dedicated desk where they just go to the same desk every day. And he's been a member. I had one guy who just left because he's going to be traveling too much and it just doesn't make sense anymore. But he was with us for 3 years. Same desk every day, came in every day. And that's a long time to maintain one customer. Like, I don't know many businesses nowadays where you can retain a client that long without something happening. Maybe that's just our nature as humans, or just the way that our needs are adapting. But and same thing with a couple of our private offices. We have one company that is like a food startup that had received a big investment from General Mills, and they've been with us since 2015. And then another like web design based agency has been with us since the same time, and they have been with us. They love it. They're super happy. And it's like a warm hug. So yeah, I mean, we have, I'd say in Irvine, our general memberships tend to have a little bit of a higher turnover for us just based on what our turnover is. But in general, it's not like a start on the first and they're gone like the next first. It's usually at least a year or so on average, I think. And
so now you've got Toronto in place. What is kind of the next step, or is it kind of like, let's see how this feels? Are you going to open more in Toronto? Are you going to do incubation here? Like, do you have a sense, or are you kind of it feels like it's a bit of a field-based company. Like, let's feel like what's working, what we're, what are we into, and then building it based on that.
Yeah, without sounding too, foo-foo or spiritual or whatever, we definitely have like I said, we are about growing sustainably and consciously. So, we're not going to have 6 new locations by, mid 2020, but we could have another one. I think our next location probably would be West Coast. So somewhere in the Southern California region, most likely. So that could be anywhere from Huntington Beach to downtown LA to Pasadena. And then, I mean, I very much could see us having another building in Toronto, probably. I'd say feel very confident that
we're currently looking in Toronto, and kind of same. We're trying to go west. So I feel like we have a really, really nice location on the East End. We love it. The East End has my heart. But west, or even like kind of central Toronto, kind of corner of the market where there's not too much. Like, don't get me wrong, there's tons in the West End. But maybe something with a little bit different of a product offering. And so hopefully that's the plan. And then our other bigger goal is to continue to cultivate and grow our Eureka Fest, which is becoming the largest tech and creative festival on the West Coast. And so this upcoming year will be our 6th year doing it. This year we just had our big 5th year.
That's like a conference. It's called Fest, but it's a conference essentially.
Yeah, Eureka Fest. How it sort of sprung up is Peter and I had been going to a lot of these meetings where Orange County was like, let's brand ourselves. We want to like put ourselves on the map. Like, we're in between San Diego and Silicon Valley and LA, and like we have our own name. And Peter and I are both doers and a little disruptive in that way. Like, so we basically just said, like, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just do an event? Like we wanted to do something for our anniversary. We wanted to have like an open house. We wanted to get the tenants involved. We wanted to invite the community. And then he came to me and was like, what if we call it Eureka Fest? And I was like, that's a great idea. And we planned the first one in 45 days, and we had 500 people show up. And it was in the middle of the week on a Wednesday from like 5 to 9. And it really just has grown from there. Now it's on a weekend. Now we have a whole week of content that we start the Tuesday, the week of. We have a VIP reception that Friday. And then the whole conference is a full day on Saturday with multiple stages. And we have a pitch contest. And we have, we call it the concourse tent, where we have, local startups and businesses demoing and connecting with other companies. And then we have a really fun after party. So, got it. And it's really, again, just to try to bring the community together. I think so much of our own Eureka branded content has always been focused on providing value to people outside of like what, I guess you sort of like what you would take from a customer, right? So, and essentially we're providing value to people who may not be a paying customer and may not be a tenant, but they know that, once a month or every week, or if there's something happening at our venue that they can come and hop into. And it sort of helps us to kind of bridge that gap between I'm not ready to buy yet, so to speak.
Putting them in the funnel.
Yeah, and then sort of meeting them where they're at, and then kind of watching them grow that way too.
Got it. Very cool.
Thanks.
And so, I mean, I know one thing because we've talked. I think I originally reached out because I saw an event that you guys were hosting at the Toronto one. You guys do a lot of events. Is that the same in California? Do you do them quite often?
Yeah, we do. So, do you have Startup Grind out here?
We do, but I think they're a little bit too big for our event space, because they usually bring out 100 to 200.
Yeah.
Right?
So when we opened in 2014, we kicked off like our first January with Tech in Motion, which I know they have a big chapter in Toronto, and then Startup Grind, same thing. And then we had a few, and we had Octane, which is a membership-based organization that is all about like startups and everything, down in Irvine as well. And so we kicked off with all of these events, and then it just sort of continued to evolve from there. So we host outside events, everything from, I want to learn how to code like my own video game. We have we call it indie game devs meetup. We have that all the way to, people from Walmart Labs and having a big panel about innovation, or, CEOs of car companies like Karma Motors or things like that coming out, and just kind of it's kind of cool to see how it's grown.
Yeah. And would you consider that probably your biggest marketing effort? Because I see quite a bit of it, right? It feels like that. I may be wrong, but it feels like that's kind of a big part of the marketing.
It is.
Component for you guys.
I think from the beginning, and now, I mean, it's so funny because 2013, 2014, like Instagram was there, and it was something, that tool that people were using, but it was not being utilized the way that it's being utilized now.
Right.
And the digital marketing space is very different from where it was then. Just in the last 6 years, it's crazy to see how much you can do to create inbound and outbound funnels and stuff like that. But so much of our growth was organic because we just opened up the doors and said, you want to have an event, come on in. And then just the sheer hi, my name is, nice to meet you, what do you do, come on in. I used to give tours all the time during events, not during events, just come on in.
Right.
And I think that sort of open facing energy really sort of set us up very quickly in Irvine, and I think we wanted to make sure that whoever we put here on the ground in Toronto had that. So Avree definitely does. And I think Toronto's taking off because we're sort of doing the same thing, but Avree's been really spearheading a lot of the digital marketing efforts for Toronto. So I think a combination of using that to work smarter, not harder, and then in combination with the events, I think has been the winning combination here.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I think I compare the way that you guys are doing events is it feels more open. It feels like the WeWorks into that. I've got some plans to go and do some talks there, but it seems like it's like their members can sit in and then nobody else get out of the building otherwise.
Right.
And even to go, and I don't even think you can go and use their. I mean, I think you could maybe. They might, but it feels a little bit more restricted versus you guys were just come and see us.
Yeah.
I like
which
friends. I like when you come visit me.
Yeah, I mean, in Irvine we have done we occasionally will do like a lunch and learn, or we'll do something that's specifically focused for the members, but only if they're the people who are receiving the maximum benefit from it. But we've always made our events open to the public, we call it the community, but open to the public, so anybody, you know, can buy a ticket and come and hear from a great speaker or something like that. And I feel like it's always, I mean, I tend to MC a lot of our stuff at Irvine, and I'll say, like, you know, how many people have been here, how many people haven't, and I'd say it's usually like at least 20% of people are new, and then the rest have, which is always kind of great, because that means that every event we're still getting lots of new people.
Yeah. And how are you guys promoting them? I see them on Eventbrite, and then are you doing, how else do you guys there?
So
Your events are already pretty much like well known across the community.
Yeah, so when we started, the first event that we did that was for the community, it was called Techtoberfest, which we do every October, which is, you know, we love a good pun. So we have Techtoberfest, we have Tech the Halls, we have Eureka Fest, and then here we have Eureka Summer Social, which she's kicking off this week, and then in California we call it Eureka Summer Nights. So they all kind of have a different feel and a different focus. I started very early on creating like our own distribution list very early, and just asking people like, hey, you want to receive updates, receive news from us, fill out this form, email, etc. And you know, we see, you know, people sometimes they do inbox cleans and stuff like that, but we've maintained like at least 300 to 3,500 subscribers at least on our list. And then I know that Avree's continuing to build hers, and I think that just comes from like that we're not going to spam you and advertise to you what space we have. Every once in a while we'll say, hey, just letting you know we have a space open, but 9 times out of 10 it's just like an update on here's everything that we have going on, and here's all the ways that you can plug in and get involved.
And what's your strategy from the content perspective that you're putting out? Like, are you sending once a month? Are you sending every other week?
Yeah, so I'd say on when you take a whole year and you splice it up into an average, I would say we're like twice a month.
Okay.
And then during like what I would consider to be like our busiest season is when we're getting ready for Eureka Fest, and then we'll ramp that up a little bit with more specific like emails that are specific for the event. But we still maintain our regular newsletters as well. Got it.
And what kind of content marketing, like what are you putting in them generally speaking?
Yeah. Well, we love there's always a debate if it's a GIF or a GIF. I think the guy who created it said it was recently a GIF.
I think so.
So that's going to be new to adapt to, but definitely GIFs. We definitely send, you know, we make a lot of our own like artwork. So we, I think we're all like a little bit of our own in-house designer.
We do everything.
We do everything. So, and then every once in a while we'll include some like a video. We also have a video series called our Eureka Moment series. We're resuming that in the next month or two.
What is that?
Yeah. So, we started that also, I think it was 2015. We started doing like 3-minute interviews with successful CEOs or CTOs, and it's basically like a who are you, what is your company, what was your Eureka moment, and like what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs starting. And they've been pretty popular, so we took a break from doing those just because events and things like that started to ramp up, but we're bringing it back, so we're going to be shooting some more videos soon.
Cool.
And I think those have, so I think so every once in a while we'll include that, or now we have more video content from Eureka Fest from like others, like specific speakers that people really loved them when they did interviews, so now we'll send those in there too.
Yeah. Do you ever consider finding products or services that are in line with what you do, and do you promote those through there as well?
Yeah. For example, there's a company that won our pitch contest this past Eureka Fest, and it's essentially an employee benefit program where you can, for the employer, it's $20 per employee per month, and you can send someone to run your employees' errands from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And they'll do everything from pick up your dry cleaning to go to the grocery store. And it's still brick and mortar, so still adding functionality, but we implemented it, and although our team is small, we're really busy, and I think we pump out a lot for a small team.
Are they Canadian yet?
So Krishna, the CEO, is from Toronto, and then now he's mainly based in Orange County at our hub there. But so there's a little bit of like Toronto love too.
I hope so.
Yeah,
that'll be really fun.
Yeah, so it's cool to kind of see that. So we'll do that, or I'm trying to think of some other companies.
I really like highlighting our tenants too.
Yeah,
our tenants
that's a
are
big
great
one.
people, and they have a lot of really cool things to offer other people. And yeah, it's also nice to be like, when you're a tenant here, we can promote you if you'd like. Like, we can make sure your services and are heard and seen.
Yeah,
Smart.
definitely.
Just rebuilding back into the community.
Yeah, and helps them, know that we're behind them, that we believe in them. Like, we wouldn't, as much as we want to like lease a space, we wouldn't put someone in that we didn't like believe in. I think that's a big part of it.
I really want to see all my companies succeed. Like, my tenants will come down and be like, Avree, guess what? Like, we did this, and I'll literally be like, that's amazing, you go. I'm so proud of you. How can I help? And they'll turn around and be like, no, you're good. Or they'll be like, can you tell people we're doing this?
Right.
And it's like, yeah. It's like the little things that make it more kind of intimate than a WeWork, like circling back from before then. For us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what are you playing with from a digital marketing standpoint? Like, are you doing, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you asked about our content too, and I wanted to make sure I circled back to that. So on both of our Instagram, we're very Instagram heavy for both locations, because I feel like that's so much of our audience. We still do some stuff on Facebook, but I feel like Instagram's been really successful for us. So something that we do without, we sort of highlight different entrepreneurs, and we do like the photo, and we have like the quote, and we sort of highlight little nuggets of wisdom across the week for people. And then we'll also share, photos from upcoming events, videos, things like that. But back to remind me of your question again. We were talking about more content, and then I got sidetracked with answering that.
No, we were talking about like what, from a content marketing perspective, what are you using in the emails? Like the promotion and highlighting people, those are good. And then I was curious if there was any
like softwares or tools or anything, or
no, just like types of things that you like. So there's people that are not current customers that are on your list.
Yeah.
So you eventually want to kind of move them in, but you don't necessarily want to move them in by just pounding them with. And like you said, you don't want to pound them with, "Hey, we have a space. Hey, we have a space. Hey, we have." So are you guys thinking about any marketing that can kind of start bringing them in, or you're not really tapping into it because you're speaking to your existing customers at the same time? You don't want to.
There's a few things that I feel like, coming from a bit of a marketing background from school, that I'm trying to apply to our new strategy. And I think the one thing we kind of have to wrap our heads around is not everyone's going to be a customer, but everyone can be someone who can say something positive about you.
Yeah.
So I think the strategy that we're trying to work on is creating content and creating things that someone looking for a co-working space might follow, but someone who's not looking for a co-working space might also follow because they like our content.
Right.
And then if a friend of theirs turns around and says, I'm looking for this, they can turn around and say, I follow this person on Instagram. Like, I don't know much about their space. Maybe you should check them out because I really like what they're posting. And it doesn't necessarily mean that direct person is going to be our client, but
of
just
course,
a good reference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then from the way that you've got your list set up, do you have it where do you have it segmented in any way, like customers and non-customers in the back end?
Yeah, we do. So we're like big MailChimp people. So we love MailChimp. I've had, when I was like a young broke Hollywood assistant, I had my own experience with MailChimp, and then like once I figured it out, it became my best friend. And now it's much easier because they have the drag and drop and the template. It's just their capacities have expanded enormously. So I was an early adopter, I guess. But yeah, we have our tenant lists, we have our hub lists, we have our like broader community lists, and then depending upon the event, like if we're doing something that's specific, we may only have like a subset of people who come to an event, or sponsors or something like that. We'll also have them on their own separate list too, because they don't want to receive like every newsletter from
that's
us.
what I was curious about. Yeah, smart.
Yeah, so we do try to be, when we're sending those things, we try not to be like And then also too, we do utilize Meetup, which has been helpful for us. But the only thing with Meetup is I think you can export your data, but it's a little bit more challenging to get your data. So I'm a big proponent in whenever you're in anything, the most power you can have is by owning your own database.
Yes.
And having it be completely organic to your business. So that's something that's been really powerful for us.
I haven't played with Meetup, but I know Eventbrite is very good, and even just like at auto export, it integrates with some stuff, which is nice. So you can just like as they come in, tag them as like
we love Eventbrite too. We do all of our events and ticket sales and everything through Eventbrite, and it's really fun when we want to promote an event because Eventbrite has that tool that allows you to send invitations to old and past event attendees. So sometimes it's like, well, let's just send it to everyone. And I'm telling you what, like the conversion rates are pretty surprising. But to like what Avree said about thinking in mind that not everyone's going to be a customer, but that there's something that they can enjoy from it. I had sort of like a field marketing background, and so for me, when I was always tasked with a sale or something like that, and I wouldn't hit it, I wouldn't beat myself up. I would just tell myself like, no, it's just about positive brand experience. So sort of similar to like, it's like the old school version of a targeted ad. It's like the more times you interface with someone and the more times you see them be who they are consistently, the more likely you are to trust them. And then once you trust them, the more likely they are to eventually buy something from you. And if that's a VIP pass for Eureka Fest, that's $200 to $300, and that's once a year and they come loyally to that, or it's a day pass at Eureka Hub Toronto, or it's sponsoring, coffee on a Friday or buying the pizza. Like there's so many different ways that we can maximize those relationships, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then from the digital marketing standpoint, are you running ads on social and on Google?
We haven't done Google yet.
Not Google. We don't do Google. We have, believe it or not, so one of the companies that Peter sold was an SEO company. So, I mean, everyone I talk to is always like, you guys have great SEO. And I'm like, I'm not an expert in that, but he is, and it's working.
Right.
It works if you work it. But in terms of, but we do sometimes do Instagram ads, or for example, like when we're trying to push, like for example, with Eureka Fest coming up and us starting to sell tickets for that, like there'll obviously be a little bit more of like a rollout that we'll do with that and utilize Instagram accordingly for that too.
Sure. And are you, for the Facebook side, are you taking your email list? Are you uploading that into Facebook?
Oh yeah, where you do the redirection. I don't know if we've done that.
I haven't done that.
I don't think we have. No, we might be due for it because
I feel like that's a little sneaky though. Like I feel like my point of view is I follow things and I sign up for things because I like them, and I might only want it from one medium. Like I might only want to hear your newsletter because you have good fitness tips, right? But I don't necessarily want to follow your photos of people pushing things around in your gym. So I feel like by doing that, you're kind of asking people to do something that they may not want to.
Right, but I think if you think about it, so if you've got the like, here's my event attendees from the past, you can upload that list, and when you have an event, you're going to email them, but they might not see that email. Your open rates are 20 or 30 or whatever percent.
Right,
So there's 70% of those people that aren't going to see it. That's true. If you put those emails in and Facebook's like, oh, I know who these 1,000 people are, they might see the event as they're scrolling through their feed, and they might not see it via email. So it might be for those specific instances, it might be an interesting thing to try.
Interesting.
Instead of like, because it's not forcing them to follow you, and it's not promoting anything that you don't specifically want them to see, right? It's not like you're going to see my Instagram post about this action. It's like, hey, we're doing this event, come check it out. And then it's like, oh yeah, remember I went to an event there before. And then you can kind of trigger them. So it's more just about making sure that you get the right amount of exposure, because email is great and you own the medium. And we're working with a couple of fairly big hip hop artists, and cool. I'm doing everything I can right now to move their audience off of social. Yeah. Because in the big picture of it, Instagram's going to do what Facebook did and force you to buy ads eventually. Right. And it's like, I don't care if it's 250,000, 500,000 on Instagram. If Instagram diminishes your organic reach, so we were adding 1,000 followers a day on Instagram, but if we're losing 2 or 3%
engagement
reach
from
anyway,
them,
then it's like
counterintuitive.
we're kind of running up a hill that we can't get up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, cool. How do we run ads to them and say, come join our email or text list? For an artist, I've been playing with a couple text platforms.
Yeah.
Because it's more like, hey, my new song came out. Click this to go to Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
For most businesses, it doesn't make sense to be on a text list.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've explored a few times, and then I've kind of like stopped and started with, because it would be great to be able to just send a mass text to all of our members like, hey, we're going to be closed. Closed from this time to this time. But from the minor research that I've done, to be able to have multiple locations and multiple things like that, it's a big software tool, and we try to, or a big subscription, and we try to stay pretty lean as much as we can.
Yeah. And then you also have to, like, I mean, if there exists an actual customer, then I could see like, okay, cool, this is practical hands-on info. But for everybody else, it's like, I don't need a text when you're having an event. Leave me alone.
I feel like that might even leave like a bad thought about you, like, who is texting me? I don't want to hear from them.
That's true.
It's but you'd be surprised. What we've been finding is that people are a lot more open to receiving correspondence that's not specific, like, hey, we're closed. People are more open to it, but I think there's still like a big gap, big bridge of like, people are not quite ready for the inbox invasion yet.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's coming, but it's not yet. I don't know. I know I would be annoyed by it, so I'm like, my instinct is like, I don't want to do that. Because if someone were to be texting me like, hey, here's some marketing tips this week, I'd be like, fuck off. I don't want that at all.
Right. And then you have to kind of think about, like, when you're sending it and how you're sending it and what it says and all that kind of stuff. I love a good text. So, like, a lot of my favorite brands or favorite stores will, like, send me a thing like, hey, this week we're having a 20% off this thing or a promo. Like, that's nice, but some people do get annoyed. I'll just say, okay, well, I can't go shopping this week, so never mind. But yeah, I'd love to text people about our free co-working Wednesdays. We started doing that. Avree started that here, to kind of just get the word out and
get some people through the door and show them how cool we are. Not to sound cocky or anything, but
no, I think we're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the space in Toronto is really cool. It's a great space with the garage door, and then the space in Irvine is just big, and we have the two event spaces. We also have this awesome outdoor park with like big trees, and it's such a great space to do like a demo day or have like a speaker and a panel, and then have demos and things like that. It's such a fun. I feel like that space would work so well in Toronto, like the summer.
It'd be amazing because it's such like a rare thing to go downtown and find this green space, right? And then they also host weddings, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Another way to get the word out, right?
Yeah, we do. And some people have turned around and said, hey, I'm a photographer. Like, I need a space to work today. You have co-working. And I'm like, yeah, we do. And they'll come in and they'll get a day pass. And they'll just take a meeting, or they'll rent the conference room for 4 hours. Right. Or like they're hiring and they need to rent some space or something like that. Or, someone's like, sort of how we kind of fell into that is we had a couple who they lived in Austin, or they had been to Austin, and then one of them worked for Google and another one worked for like another tech company, and they specifically loved our building because it wasn't like a traditional venue. It was like, oh, they have these tech stuff here and they have this and that, and then that sort of helped that business grow too.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Got it. Cool. And one thing I was thinking about, which, if you're filming these kind of 3 to 5 minute, if that's starting back up again, one thing that I've experienced a lot of success with is promoting them on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like doing promotions on YouTube?
Fairly inexpensive, but the targeting capabilities are really strong on YouTube.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily like I'm picking someone in a whatever mile radius that I know is going to come and co-work with us, but just for like the brand awareness, you might gain some followers on social. You might get them to come to an event, that kind of thing. But just based on the cost as a branding exercise, not a sales exercise, but a purely branding exercise.
Sure.
Might be an interesting thing. So you can, with YouTube, you can target the type of video or like certain other publishers. So if I'm already watching a video from that person or related to a specific keyword, your video could pop up. Yeah. And then especially when they're short and consumable, it could be a pre-roll thing. And especially if they're looking for they're down that path anyway, where they're like, oh, I want to listen to like a podcast or an interview about this, or especially if you name them like specific to what the conversation was about. I found that really practical.
Okay.
So the way I do it with this podcast is I'll name each podcast the name of whatever we're talking about, marketing ideas for X,
Yeah.
whatever the industry is. And so not only targeting it on YouTube, but when someone searches on Google, you don't have to buy a Google ad. But after they search for a specific thing on Google, you can actually give them that ad on YouTube the next time they're there, because the platforms are together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
So if you are photographer and you're saying I need marketing ideas for my photography business, I don't have a blog, so I'm not going to promote anything on Google, but the next time they go on YouTube, this podcast that I've recorded is what shows up first for them.
Wow.
Like, so their pre-roll ad is the podcast,
Oh, interesting.
right? Yeah. And
We
so
should do that.
we've had tremendous success. It's actually been a lead generation tool for us. I had a guy over the weekend say, hey, I was listening to your podcast with Laura, who I had on a little while ago. We're looking for someone who knows their shit. And I was like, oh, that's us. Good.
Yeah.
I think that may have been from, and I don't know. I'm trying to go through our analytics and find out, but I couldn't figure it out. Because he Facebook messaged our page. He didn't go through the website, so I have no idea. But what we've been finding is, so our podcasts are about an hour long. And so instead of rolling a trailer, like a teaser, and saying, go listen to it, I'm just running the entire podcast as the ad. So like a 1 hour pre-roll YouTube ad, which is excessive. If you think about the 5-second skip button, you're like,
Right.
wait, but like it's an hour long. Are you kidding me? Our average watch time on the ads is friggin' ridiculous.
Yeah.
We just got over 20 minutes per view.
Oh,
Average
that's
per view.
amazing.
That's really cool.
That's
Yeah.
an incredible
And
amount
that's
of
over
attention.
that's
Yeah.
over our last 40,000 views, and we've
Oh my
only paid
goodness.
like maybe like $350 for that, because it's really cheap.
Wow.
Done.
Yeah. So if you're making that type of video content,
Yeah.
whatever that stuff is,
Yeah.
and whether it could even be promotion for the event and people
Yeah.
Googling marketing events in Toronto, or like, business events, networking events in Toronto, you don't want to necessarily buy an ad on Google, because it might cost $3 to $6 to get a click to Eventbrite, and you're like, I don't know if I want to pay that. But what you can do is pay 2 cents, and then the next time they go on YouTube, your event video, like the promo video from last year, saying, hey, this is coming up this weekend, click to buy a ticket, and then that sends them to Eventbrite.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, just to get some extra
We'll definitely have to.
exposure.
mull
I'm
that
already
over.
starting to think about how we can use this for Eureka Fest. And
I know that's something we can definitely talk about.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
And I
bring
think
back to the mothership.
Yeah. And I think, look, I mean, Facebook and Instagram ads are super, super effective. The way that you can target and the way you can narrow down people. If you guys run them in-house?
Yeah, we half run them in-house, half take them out of house, I guess to another company. But we've been doing Facebook ads consistently with Toronto for the past 6 months, I think.
Got
Yeah.
it. And those are generally going to be promoting the events, or also promoting co-working space? There's a little mix of everything.
Little
Yeah,
mix.
it does events. It does. We've done a few brand awareness ones, a few promos, just kind of testing the waters and see what the specific crowd is looking for, because the Toronto market is very saturated.
Yeah,
Very.
sure
It's
is.
hard to break through. So.
Yeah. One targeting thing. So you go through the ad manager.
Mm-hmm.
So one targeting thing that we've been using that's really effective, because you guys probably do it by age and by a couple other parameters.
Yeah, we usually do. I think last time I was doing one manually, we did it by age and we did it by topics of interest,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did some by geolocation.
Yeah.
We're starting to do more and more actually by our location, because we find that people in Toronto don't want to commute far.
No doubt.
So the people in Leslieville are the best
Right.
people we have, and
Yeah.
so that's actually been our biggest market.
One thing that might help you tighten that Facebook ad up, specific for the I need a co-working space, is targeting the geo and targeting the age, but adding on an interest base. No, it's not interest, it's a behavior base.
Oh, okay.
So so there's the demographics, behavior, and then there's interests.
Mhm.
So behavior is I have an iPhone, or I have whatever. But under the behavior category, you can use a thing that's people who are an administrator of a Facebook business page. So if I have a startup, I likely am an admin on a business page because
Right.
it's like Mike Moll's company on Facebook. So you can narrow that targeting to people that are an admin on a business page in addition to those
Interesting.
other things, because that's usually a good indication. Like it could be a community oriented thing. It could be my model planes that I post on the internet, but it likely someone who's an administrator of a business page is going to be someone that owns a company. So that might help actually narrow down when you're doing ones that are like traffic oriented, not just like reach and views. If you're doing stuff that's like, I want to drive traffic to the site for this thing, you may want to test with that parameter, because it's actually going to narrow the amount of people down by a significant amount. And I found it to be more effective than any interest or demographic piece. Other like, people that follow like Entrepreneur Magazine, like, those are okay.
Yeah.
But people that are business page admins, for me, are generally, that's usually a sweet spot. So
Ooh,
yeah,
behavior. I like that.
yeah. So try that, because it will increase your cost per click. But if it's a more targeted cost per click, then who gives a shit?
Then who cares?
Right.
Right, exactly. No,
Yeah.
for sure.
So something to play with.
We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah. Sounds like a task for tomorrow.
Sounds like a tomorrow item. So we think that we should be doing this.
We are lucky enough to have 2 new social media interns on board too, who are fresh out of George Brown and OCAD actually.
Awesome.
So we're so excited to be building our team a little bit more too, and see what kind of knowledge they have. I know I went through a marketing degree and they didn't teach me anything about digital marketing, like not a single thing.
So I've recently hired somebody to do digital marketing, and it was not someone fresh out of school. I found like the practical knowledge from people was like, you should have interned somewhere, or you should have been buying ads. The guy I hired was a guy who was like, oh, I went into debt trying to figure out how to run Facebook ads to an e-commerce store, and then I finally hit a product and got my money back. I'm like, I love you. You're hired. He was like, it's such an easy decision. I'm like, oh, you've run an ad before and not just like theorized about it? Great.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So, yeah.
And
It's
that's so
interesting.
hard to come like through now too, is you meet people who know how to run ads, and it's like an art form now. Like it's actually so hard to narrow it down and make sure you're not wasting your money on Facebook ads too, because it's so easy to just be like, I'm gonna throw it away.
Yeah. And Facebook, so one other thing with Facebook, and you're probably running like lower daily budget stuff anyway.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the most part.
Because one thing that we talk to people about is, hey, I've got a budget of X, and so I'm going to start by running I'm going to run $100 a day for a certain amount, like 5 days, and that's going to be my promotion. The challenge with that is, if the audience isn't the right audience and that click-through rate is low or the interaction rate is low, Facebook is going to show it to fewer people, because it's like, I don't feel like the people that you've picked, this audience, is the right audience.
Right.
But I'll still spend your money, which is kind of a kick in the face. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, it's like 22 hours into the day. We've slowed down showing it to people because we don't feel like you've hit the right thing. But we've only spent 18 out of the 100. So we'll just go ahead and spend the 82 like real late when you're not looking.
Yeah.
Like they will spend your money, but they limit you based on if they feel like your ad is relevant and hitting people in the right way. So it's a bit of a frustrating medium. Google's the same way. Both ad platforms are really an art form. Google is probably the more complicated by far, because the targeting capabilities are less, and the way that you pick a keyword, if it's broad keyword, you're just going to be buying ads for every bloody thing under the sun. And
Right.
I think everybody's kind of made that mistake. Most people are making that mistake now and have no idea that they're making it. So that's an interesting thing to deal with. But Google will swallow your money fast. Facebook will limit your reach and then use your budget. And you're like, that kind of sucks. I don't like that. So I always recommend like $5 a day to scale up to maybe 10 or $15 a day. And like for most ads, that's where I kind of leave it. The only time you can go above that is if you're using like an e-commerce product and you're tracking a conversion, and those conversions are hitting, and Facebook's like, oh, I can see this working, then you can actually scale your spend. But until that's happening, I don't recommend spending more than $20 a day on a particular ad. So
Yeah, keep the costs, make them effective and make them count. You know, I think for us, in terms of our marketing dollars, I think every penny that we have spent into digital has been incredibly specific and incredibly strategic, and so I think that's been helpful. And I think it's been, it's not just throwing throwing money at the wall and like hope it sticks. Like it's like, okay, like where can we identify where we have a couple, not like challenges, but a couple of areas where we could use a little bit of like digital help.
Yeah.
And then working backwards and saying, okay, well, how can we strategize and what makes the most sense for us and what are we trying to hit and what's the goal, and then work backwards from there. Yeah, for sure. It's so cool to just have the technology to do that, because like, I swear, like, again, like I remember like when I did like our first Eureka Hub post, and it was like 2014, I was like, we're on Instagram. And I remember like people were like doing panels about like, yeah, like Instagram's going to be the way that people are going to capture content. And my CEO at the time was like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool. And I'm like, yeah, we should have an Instagram account. And then, I mean, look at what it is now, you know, but so yeah.
Cool. All right, awesome. Well, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Very interesting. It's refreshing to see this strategy, like very people first, very community first, in a world where, especially in the co-working space, it's very much like, how quickly can we grow? How quickly can we get a subscription on board?
Yeah.
And it just feels like everyone's kind of it feels like just a pure numbers game.
Yeah.
Which it always is. Businesses, you got to make money.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
but it's a really interesting approach where it's like, you don't even need great paid ad strategy, because like you're already building these communities, and if you're growing the number of buildings you have at a reasonable rate, it's like, no, you just fill them up and then get another one once it's full. So
exactly,
it's kind of interesting. It's a slow burn, but it feels like it's got longevity to it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think I speak for our entire team when I say this, but we're going to be around for a long time, and we have every intention of being around, and who knows, we could even outlive, and we have outlived a couple specifically in Orange County that have folded up and things like that. And I tried as an operator and as like sort of like the leader of it came from Peter's head, and then I started the foot soldiering, is that don't get distracted by shiny objects. Like, yes, there's going to be something exciting. There's going to be something new that's going to happen, because that's just the way that the world works. But stay true to like, I think we're really trying to stay true to who we are and what we do, and feeling comfortable in our brand and feeling comfortable in the value add that we have, and then the intangible value of the other things that we do that reach people that aren't physically renting space from us. And I think as long as we keep our feet on the ground and we don't stray too far away from that, I think as we take that into every building and treat it with love and treat it like a home and treat it like we live there, I think we'll continue to be really successful. And this has been really great. So, we thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
And letting us tell our story.
For sure. And where can people find you? I'll link it in the show notes, but.
Yeah. So, eurekabuilding.com, eurekahub.com. It links to both of our locations. Avree is at Eureka Hub TO. And then our main is at Eureka Hub. And then she's personally at Avree Scar, and then I'm at Taylor Lee Decker.
Personal plug.
Yeah. And it's funny when people send in emails, like I even have like, if we get too busy with volume, I think even just inbox management is helpful. I have like a thing that's like, thanks for reaching out. Like I care about your email, but like here's other areas where you can find awesome like inspiration, and it's like links to like our YouTube, our Facebook, our Twitter, and stuff like that, because I just sort of, you believe it or not, some people will click through and they'll just,
You can't talk to me, but you can see my face in this beautiful video.
Exactly. But thank you for the input too on the YouTube stuff, because I think that'll be something that would be really helpful, because we have recap videos of all of our events, and the Eureka Moment series too will be really helpful for that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks
so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.